The Social Security Administration expected to announce its 2023 cost of living adjustment this coming Thursday. Now, this would affect 66 million Americans who receive benefit checks from this agency. The increase aims to keep seniors from losing purchasing power due to inflation. The Senior Citizens League advocacy group says seniors are likely to receive an increase of 8.7%, which would be an average of $144 a month. That would be the largest hike since 1981. Well, there was a scare at Schrader Middle School in Grand Forks yesterday after a guardian of one student called to report 2 handguns missing from their home. The guns were found about a half hour after the call to police and not found on school grounds. Police say there's no evidence pointing to the weapons being on campus ever, and there were no threats made to anyone at the school or within the community. But if you know anything about what happened, you are urged to contact Grand Forks Police. A Democratic candidate for North Dakota's District 24 House seat dropping out of the race. 33-year-old Caitlin Huss was charged with assault last week after an incident at a bar in Valley City. A man says Huss punched him in the face and ripped out some of his hair. Huss says she behaved in a manner unbefitting of a candidate. Her name will still appear on the November 8th ballot, but she's encouraging voters to choose one of the other 3 candidates. Well, it's the Great Pumpkin, quite literally, and it was grown in Minnesota. The Safeway World Championship Pumpkin Weigh-Off took place in California over the weekend, and the U.S. record is now 2,560 pounds, which is great for a $23,000 grand prize. The pumpkin, dubbed Maverick, was grown by Travis Ginger, who credits his success to a lot of hard work, luck, and, of course, fertilizer.
It shouldn't even happen in Minnesota because our weather goes from 96 to 42 in 24 hours. So, I mean, we got lucky with this one. So,
I think we can all agree about that weather comment, huh? The world record for the largest pumpkin is 2,703 pounds. That was set last year in Italy. All right, guys, let's see how people are responding so far to our question of the morning on Facebook. We're going to jump to that graphic. Earlier, we asked, there will be 11 of these in 2022. What do you think it is? Here's some of the answers you are giving us. Julie says, changes to COVID regulations. You never know. Clayton, along the same lines, says sales for toilet paper. And Julena says storm days. To leave your answer, check out the question on our Valley News Live Facebook page. We'll be back with the correct answer in a few minutes. Breaking news straight ahead, a woman hurt and a shooter on the run after a gunfight in South Fargo. Plus, new at 6:30, the Coast Guard pulls 3 stranded boaters from the Gulf of Mexico. This as sharks were going after some of those men. And Lisa Green will be joining us with a look at our morning forecast as we jump outside for this live look on our Tuesday morning across Fargo. We'll be right back.